Several topics will be on the table today when Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow sits down with Premier Doug Ford, including a push for the province to provide more cash to the city dealing with a major financial hole. Mayor Chow is joining us live now in studio this morning. Mayor Chow, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Tammie.
So we'll start off with priority number one. What is that for you going into this meeting?
Well, my priority is to make sure that the residents in Toronto have a good quality of life and something to make life more affordable. So for me, priority one is building affordable housing and making sure that we have a good transit system and the streets safer. And all of that, of course, costs money. I inherited a $1.5 billion budget deficit. And that's a lot of money. So it makes it hard to increase the TTC service, which I did. I restored some of the service that was cut in the summer. But that money, operating TTC, used to be paid by the province of Ontario. It got downloaded. The Gardner and DVP used to be responsibility of the provincial government. That got downloaded. Housing, Ontario housing, so a lot of housing, affordable housing, where people live, was also downloaded, which means that the City of Toronto is delivering all types of service, which is great. But we don't have the financial means to pay for it. We only have the property tax, and property tax doesn't grow with the economy. It's also not progressive, meaning if you make $60,000 a year, I make $600,000 a year, you and I have, my house is a bit more expensive than yours, but we still pay similar property taxes. That's not fair, and that's the only source of revenue we have.
So now the council has recently voted to have different revenue tools installed, including taxing more expensive properties,
That's
$3 million houses and so on.
Yeah.
But also there was a motion in there to ask the province for a new municipal sales tax. Is that something that you're going to be going to the Premier with, asking for permission to either have that new tax or to take a bigger chunk of the HST from the province?
I prefer that we don't start new taxes because people, I just talked about making life affordable. If you tax them a bit more, especially the sales tax, it's not progressive, right? Income tax, you pay more if you have a lot of money. So I would prefer if the provincial government actually give us a sense of the existing sales tax. That would be great. Or upload some of the services that I talked about that they pushed on to the City of Toronto. But, talking about upload, download, residents' eyes glaze over. But the most important thing is that we could deliver good service. If you look at the Gardners, it's a bit embarrassing. It's falling down, right? And not literally falling down, but you can see chunks missing.
Crumbling. Yep.
Crumbling, yeah. And if you look at public transit, TTC, it's still very reliable, but we don't have enough money to buy the new subway cars on Bloor Line. We got new ones on Yonge Line about a decade ago. It's time that we buy new ones for Bloor Line. So those kind of really big, expensive items, we just don't have the financial capacity. So this conversation is help us out. And Mr. Ford lives in the city. He used to be a city councillor. He understands what we face, so I hope that we will have a good dialogue.
He's also said in the past, though, that the province has provided its fair share to Toronto. Are you worried that you're not going to get the answers that you want when it comes to either getting a bigger chunk of the HST or even potentially uploading again the TTC or the Gardner, that kind of thing? Are you worried that you're just going to get a flat out no? Where do you go from here?
Well, it's the power of the people. Hopefully people will speak up that we need better public transit, a safer city, and more affordable housing, right? So I think we agree on those principles. It's just working out the details is going to be tough. And he's sitting on a $20 billion surplus. Wow, 20 billion. We just want a tiny piece of it so that the service can be delivered properly. So it's not as if, now I'm new on this job. I came in July, so I inherited a big deficit. And part of it was because people weren't riding the TTC during COVID time. So TTC is struggling. And we want to have a good public transit because if the city of Toronto, with or without the rubber ducks, so
or without,
we have an amazing city with all the street festivals. We are growing, but life is just a bit unaffordable these days. So you count on the city to deliver every kind of services, whether it's police, ambulance, fire, you name it, clean water, garbage pickup, public transit, senior service, childcare.
You need that money, for sure.
Yeah, you can't name one service we don't do.
Now, my last question, because we're out of time, but this is your first official meeting with the Premier since becoming mayor, and during the election campaign, he said you becoming mayor would be an unmitigated disaster. You have heard the negativity that he has said about you. He's not happy with some of the comments that you've made as well about Ontario Place. How do you think that your personalities then will come together, and how you'll be able to ask for this additional money when it's not a small amount of money, in the grand scheme of things? It is quite big to someone who has said, you know what, you've already gotten enough.
Yeah, well, I hope he loves the city as much as I do, and I think he does. And I hope that he listened to the people in the city that I think is telling everybody, help us make life more affordable. Because, if the housing cost is not so high, we'll have some money left to go out and eat, to go shopping. That means the entire economy will be lifted up. If not, then when you're going paycheck to paycheck and you're worried about whether you're going to make ends meet, you're not going to go out and eat. Then our restaurants and our stores are not going to do well. The small businesses that generate all the jobs in the city won't do as well. So I think at the end of the day, let's love our city, let's work together, we iron out our difference. That's just campaign talk. Put that behind us.
All right. Mayor Olivia Chow, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. Again, you'll be meeting with the Premier at 1 o'clock, and a news conference will be held as well at 2, and you can follow along on our website, that is citynews.ca as well. Thanks so much for that.